you scaled yourself out of this.
Exactly.
You kept hiring. This person's doing your social. This person's doing your cleaning. This person's doing your management. This person's going all over your systems. This person's going on. And you've completely eaten up any profit that you have left. He's like, well, it's not worthwhile now to be 7+ figures and being less than 120, 130 grand.
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our doors open. We're your hosts, Taylor, Matt, and Shelby, and we'll bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and may even throw in a plug for you to do business with us. Welcome, Crossroads Conversation, episode 79. We are the Lewis Brothers live in the studio, and a good topic today, why success fatigue leads to sloppy systems and shrinking margins. Now, the difference between scaling up and bloating out, but bottom line, how to protect your character and ethics when the stakes and checks get bigger. We're going to have a lot of fun diving into this today. But a quick recap, we had Elvis with Arkansas on the car show. Elvis was in the building. Yes, loved talking about that. It's going to be such a big event at the red white game that they're going to have at the university. Go back and check that out. It's really big. Had a whole lot of fun with Elvis on the set.
Yeah, it was a great episode.
Absolutely. So talking community outreach, hey, remember always to visit us at lewissuperstore.com for all your automotive needs, whether it's be scheduling an oil change, looking for the latest greatest inventory, or wondering what is my car worth in my driveway. You can find that all there. And crossroadconversationspodcast.com for all things podcasts. And tune in with us so we can bring you relevant and new information.
You know, today we're talking about a subject that many don't really even recognize or identify until things are going wrong.
Okay.
So what we want to do is try to get you ahead of that. It's called the profit leak. And it's tightening systems when money is easy. See, people look at tightening systems when they see that their P&L was going down, or they had a negative month, or year over year was going down. But it's a growth trap. And there's why 5% of multi-million-dollar companies vanish every year.
That's crazy.
So when you think about that, we're not talking about 5% of startups. We're talking about 5% of multi-million-dollar businesses vanish every year. And we see this happening. Now, on our side, we get to see where they start spending the money on cars and on this and that. And we're thinking, man, we just sat in a meeting and both the conversations, and you guys will relate to this, is one, great job. We had a good month. We were up year over year. We're up our 90-day average. Now, by the way, we got to look at these expenses.
It's funny that you say that because I saw a thing the other day about, one of those social media things and you click on it and you're invested. But guy was talking about he had a 7-figure a year of gross revenue coming in for a gym he'd set up, and he was like, well, how's it going? He's like, well, I'm in 7 figures. He's like, well, that's what you're bringing in. How's it netting out? And he's like, well, we've grown to 27 employees. I was like, okay, that's pretty solid. And he's like, all right. So he's like, I'm bringing about $12,000 to $13,000 a month home.
Yeah.
And so you're like 12 to 13, like super solid, right? But to be 7 figures revenue, paying 27 employees what they're worth and dealing with all the headache, he's like, dude, you scaled yourself out of this.
Exactly.
You kept hiring. This person's doing your social. This person's doing your cleaning. This person's doing your management. This person's going all over your systems. This person's going on. And you've completely eaten up any profit that you have left. He's like, well, it's not worthwhile now to be 7+ figures and being less than 120, 130 grand.
Now let's define something here real quick. When everybody's listening, we're not talking about during startup. During startup, you're hiring people. Yeah. It's an expense, and it's going to do. It's just no different. Even though we had been in business for over 70 years, when we scaled to our current location, we knew our forecast. That first year, that first 6 months, that first 18 months, it's going to take a whole lot of expense. We're talking about when you're rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Everything's going good. You guys think about this. When business is booming, especially let's talk about a 7-figure business there, a $500 mistake or a wasted afternoon doesn't feel like a big deal because that top line revenue just covers it up. But this is where operational bloat begins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because all of a sudden when you're like, yeah, I'm done with the day, it's 2:00
Yeah.
and you're gone. When you get into like, hey, let's always buy food for everybody on Fridays.
Yeah.
Don't take me wrong. I'm not saying don't take care of your employees.
Yeah.
But when it becomes a normal,
That's $26,000 if you bought it every Friday. And if
every
you buy it on
Friday.
Friday, you're gonna have to buy it on Saturday,
Yeah.
right? So then you're 52 grand.
Yeah. So if that's 26 grand, let's just say this guy's business had a 5% return.
Yeah.
Okay. So take
Net.
Yeah, net. So
Net
take
gross,
that
yeah.
26 grand, and we're going to teach everybody something here. Let's take that $26,000 that you would have spent.
Mhm.
Now let's do it at 5%. Okay. So here's the way you do that. You take the number and then you divide it by 0.05. Okay. So this is going to tell us how much gross
You have to
revenue
generate.
we would have to generate to cover the $26,000. What'd you come up with?
$520,000.
So you'd have to generate over $500,000, not in sales dollars, in gross.
Yes. That's the tricky thing you don't look at, because every vendor out there will pitch you like, hey, my system only costs $1,500 a month.
Yep.
Or pizza, you know, your employees will say, hey, buy me pizza or buy lunch, you know, every other Friday or something. They say, if you could sell another car, you can make that much money. Well, it doesn't work that way because that's the top line.
That is top line. So and I'll slow down a little real quick, and hopefully our team will put it in the show notes. If you want to know how much you have to generate to cover that cost, take whatever percentage. Yours might be 10%, it might be 3%, it might be 25%.
Net revenue.
Of net revenue. Now, before you pay, you know, all your taxes,
Yeah.
all right, of net revenue, and you take that and you use that as the divider into however much you want to spend. You want to spend 50 grand, 10 grand, $1,000. How much do I have to generate? We do this with our employees that want to give away a set of floor mats, that want to comp a tire. No, and I'm not saying we don't ever do that. There's situations we do, but that's the real way to look at it, because if you don't, you're like, oh, it's $500. We're rolling. No big deal. This habit, and then all of a sudden you get operational bloat. I like that term.
That happens fast, and it happens even internal employees. You start to go into that and talk, and I find it a lot that a missed PO, a missed vendor that we didn't hold out in the wheel for the deal comes across, and a manager, you know, quickly, if it's within 200, 300, 400, they're like, oh, yeah, yep, charge it back, expense it to policy. I'm like, whoa, do you even know what that deal is? And sometimes it'll catch them off guard that are like, well, no, I just know it was going to have to be taken care of. So I just went ahead and said, yeah, let's move forward. So when you take that times 10, times 20, times 30, times 50, whatever it would be, it starts to really add up.
It really does. So the takeaway there is make sure, yes, you got to spend money to make money. Yes, you got to take care of employees, but there's always a threshold there too. Okay. You need to look at it. Hey, how much money are we actually keeping? Are you saying you're making 7 figures, but you're really only taking, you know, just a few figures home?
It's crazy.
You know, you got to relook at that. Okay. The next up, the discipline of the percent. Why you must manage by percentages, not just dollar amounts, to ensure profitability stays scaled in growth.
You know
Didn't we
what?
just go over that?
Yeah. But let me give it a different angle.
Okay.
So if you're looking at expenses, don't look at the dollars, because the sales are going to move based on the season of the year,
Okay.
right? So it's going to grow in the hot season versus when it's cold, and you have to do something in construction when it's cold out. You're not going to have that gross revenue as high. But if you manage all the things based on percentages, whether it's net revenue or expenses, policy, or healthcare, whatever it may be, if you'll manage that on a percentage, the number won't matter. It's just the percentage, so that you can see, am I in line? Is that
That's right.
increasing or decreasing?
I think a great example, I'm going to take our business, because we just came off of, you know, a huge month in Ultimate Challenge. Percentage wise, our advertising, we spent double what we normally spend in advertising, if not more.
Yeah, probably 2.5 times.
But then in April, that scales back down. In February, it was down less too. We didn't just say, hey, leave that on repeat.
No.
You know, the team was ready to put in place different budgets in every different area.
Yeah.
because it won't always equal.
It won't.
Right? You can't say, hey, if I spend $450,000 in advertising, it's going to sell me 678 cars. There's so many other pieces to that puzzle. That's just one.
There's seasons.
Yep.
There's trends.
The manpower, their freshness.
If you're in construction, what's the supply look like?
Yeah.
What does the weather look like?
Yeah.
You need to take all those in consideration. It's not a set it, forget it.
And you're not just going to bid 500 jobs if you don't have the manpower and the ability to do it, right? If you can only do 10 jobs at once, like there's no need to do that.
Let me get y'all's thought on this, okay? Auditing, yes. Like the word yes. And when you think about that, when things are good, we say yes to everything. We're like, oh man, they've done good. Yes, yeah, go ahead and do that. Treat yourself. This segment discusses the power of a strategic no to keep your team from being spread either too thin or saying yes from an expense structure. So what are y'all's thoughts on controlling that word yes?
On the expense side, I'll tell you, I'm very quickly to no. People will call me a cheapskate quickly. Like from the management team to other salespeople to customers, you're like, golly, you're a cheapskate. It's like, I've seen it on the other side. I look at the expenses. I look at the bills. We can't afford to, 678 cars sold. You're like, golly, must be rolling the money. They're like, their expenses are higher in that month than they ever will be, right? And so, yeah, I agree with that auditing the yes. And sometimes I need to say yes more. But
so on the no, let me unpack that for just a second. I agree with you on the no, but what's your delivery there? So, employees don't just think that you're just absolutely smacking them with a hammer.
You got to deliver it with a reason and then an alternate, or we could try this. Right?
There you go.
It's like, hey, I totally get that. Seems like a great idea. Thanks for bringing it to me. Hey, at the phase that we're in right now, we probably need to look at it this direction where we've probably got that channel that already does that, or probably have a software that already does that. Or what if we reallocated our cost for those people? And I'll jokingly, I'm like, hey, what if we reallocated the cost of those people? And then we could do that. We could buy pizza. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, we wouldn't be able to employ them, but we could get pizza. And so they're like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, I know. It doesn't make sense.
But another one though, where it does make sense. And I've heard you do this before. When somebody brings you, okay, we've been talking about pizza and this and that, but they bring you a new system idea. We left NADA this year and hey, something else for $5.99 a month. And before you say just yes to it, I've heard you tell them before, like, hey, bring me something else we could cut or we could replace.
That's so important. And so then chances are they're not going to bring you anything, right? They might bring you something,
sure,
but they already like what they have, right? And they have fear of FOMO or fear of loss if they unplug this. And so then it quickly tells them, okay, maybe I shouldn't.
But if they're really bought into it, then they might look through it and go, man, that other thing we really don't use, we could probably get rid of.
Yeah, if it had a higher ROI.
The three of us were going through that. Remember when we were looking at all the systems?
Yep.
And we were looking at that. We were like, we really liked this, but when we look at the user report there, it's not really being used. We could cut that.
Yep.
And we had to invest it in another area, like tracking our rapid recon.
Yeah.
We took money from where we cut over here and reinvested it there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really good. I think that applies to personnel employees too. I find myself more and more that it's no, I want everybody to have time with their family, have vacations, have time off, whatever it needs to be. We need to structure it this way. And it's because of, I need the customer not to suffer. So same thing Shelby was just saying. Always, you can have the no in there. Just have an alternative that you need to walk your team through.
Yeah. And I know I've gotten in this trap many a times is I just keep adding on. Instead of like replacing.
Yeah.
It's like, what you can use in the fancy documents is find and replace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can do that, like replace it. And sometimes you just got to prune. If we're getting into springtime, people have pruned things, so then they'll grow back even bigger.
Yep.
So just remember that. All right. The guardrail, maintaining the same rigorous expense tracking you had when you were scrappy and hungry. Mm-hmm. So what's that mean? When you were starting up and you barely had any cash flow and you're checking your bank account 5 times a day to make sure we could do payroll and we could pay for that shipping, you're re-looking at the packing slip going, okay, that was 210 net 30. We're on day 20. We can wait a couple more days before we pay that one. Mm-hmm. That type of structure really helps somebody scale. But sometimes when you start making money, that kind of goes away.
It has to evolve with that. You have to keep that same mindset, but it has to evolve to the scale of whatever your business is. But I think it's so, so important to never forget that. And that's probably where a lot of people say, don't forget where you came from. Not necessarily mean you have to go back to doing things exactly how you were doing it, but remember that structure. Remember how you used to audit how deals were done, how cash flowed through your business, and how personnel was taken care of. So I really like that it just goes back and it's regrounds you, because everybody gets out of rhythm sometimes.
I agree.
I think it's the discipline as well. Think about any good athlete on their up and coming. You know, they had everything to gain, not much to lose. And so they were super disciplined, super scrappy, super hungry to do whatever needed to be done. And so in business, you think about that like, okay, you're going to audit all this stuff, and you're going to make sure the systems are correct. And you're going to make sure the word tracks are correct. And are you answering all the leads in a proper time? And are you answering the phone call? What do you sound like? And what does your delivery look like? And is the car cleaner when it leaves here than when it came here? All those things. You know, so you have to remember those things. And so then if you have to scale, which most businesses do, you need to make sure the person you put in your replacement has that same discipline, hunger, and ability of these details matter, right? And so if you have that, then that allows it to continue to scale.
I love that aspect of being hungry. I was at, and completely take this to realm of a different side, but still in a business. Recently was at a restaurant, and they had a guy that was playing entertainer in 2 different nights. So first night, I was like, God, that guy was good. Like, played all the songs, knew it, had the whole crowd going in, and he was a newer guy. Second night, and they're like, oh, if you think he was good, wait till the next night when the guy comes in. I'm like, okay, the guy's been there for over 18 years. They normally played for about 3 hours. This guy played 20 minutes, walked around for the other 45 minutes, and then played another 20 minutes. And I started laughing. And I said, he's working the crowd, but he's not near as hungry as that guy was the first night. That he was like, oh, yeah, song. Okay, great. I got you. And then for the alternative, I looked at by the tip jar that was up on the front. The guy on the first night, it was way more full because he was hustling. So whoever you have jump in your business, no matter what it is, make sure they have that dog in them that's got the fight and they're getting after it.
And realize what they're getting paid for.
Yes.
Right? Not getting paid to walk around and talk to people, getting paid to play music.
Yes.
They brought the people with them that they wanted to talk to.
Yes.
Right? And so you have to keep that in mind, because oftentimes we try to mitigate and change. Like, no, here's what I'm thinking. You know, it's a thing I told the managers this morning, like, hey, if you had to write every single paycheck for every single one of your employees, would you be satisfied in the check that you wrote them today? And they were like, ooh. I was like, and some of them would be big. Some of you got 100 people on your, team. Would you feel good about each one of those that you wrote individually? And they're like, so just think about it, right? The entertainment. Would you be happy with the entertainment that you provided tonight?
No, that's good for sure.
So going through there, we kind of touched on this, but how many multi-million-dollar companies go out of business each year? We're not talking about a startup, but you looked at it and it was over 5% of those businesses go out of business every year because of the small bloat we talked about, the operational bloat, the profit leak that starts to come through. So that's something you really, and I say the more effective leaders do it whenever they're making more money.
That's it.
They do it whenever they're making more money.
They prepare, and it's no different if you talk to somebody, especially if you have variable income and you talk to a financial planner or you talk to somebody that's been highly successful for a long time, they say work your budget based upon your worst month or your least amount of income month. And from a business perspective, if you'll work your expenses based upon where you can still be profitable on your slowest month of the entire year, then the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah. I think that's so good. All right, segment 2, we'll talk about character insurance. And this isn't necessarily something you can buy, right? But protecting your ethics at the peak. So when things are going really good. So first one is it's easy to be a person of high character, just like I talked about in the athletes, when you really have nothing to lose. But when the real test is when cutting a corner could gain you an extra 6 figures. If I cut this corner, like, what is that corner? What are you cutting? Is it a quality? Is it an inspection? Is it a person? Is it a necessary role? So understanding character insurance of like, what's your character? When no one's looking or when everyone's looking, what does it look like? The shortcut temptation. People often look at shortcuts. So what's your guys' feelings and thoughts on shortcuts if it means net positive?
I'll tell you where we get tested all the time in our business. and it's in the finance department.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when you talk about protecting your ethics, even at a peak, when it can cost, the amount of deals that we will not get approved here because we're 100% transparent with how long they've been on their job, how much income they make. They'll go down the road and somebody bumps their income up when they submit that credit app over, and then they get them approved.
So it would mean net positive to the store, to the finance manager, to the owner.
In the short term, yes.
And so the thing is, and what you have to realize is we are 100% responsible for that customer's information to them. We represent the customer to the bank.
Yeah.
And most people know, based on a customer's credit score and the structure of the deal, of when they're going to say, prove that to me. Right? When they say, okay, $5,400 a month is what they make, $3,200 a month is what they make, prove that to me.
That's right.
Right? But they know there's a fine line there. And so what if we bumped it up a little bit? That means we could get a little more money carried. You're not going to sell the car for more, but you're not properly representing the customer to the bank. And that's one of the things we will not cut a corner on.
That's right. That's right. Even, you know, because we want the long-term business. We have yet to ever have a bank cut us off.
Yeah.
In 80 plus years of doing business. And, you know, we hear about it all the time up and down the road because we make sure. So there's that part. And then there's the straw purchase part too.
Straw purchase. And that's where a lot of employees even will come to us and say, any three of us, but they say, why are you always so confident? And I can easily go back to them and I say, because I know how we do the process. And I can confidently go through it and know that y'all are going to be held accountable for what we're going through. So whether it's straw purchase of saying, hey, we're misrepresenting, I'm buying the car for Shelby and it's actually, he's going to be using it, but we're using my income or whatever would be credit to buy it. That's considered a straw purchase. And a lot of people do that, misrepresent a mom or a dad buying for a kid or grandma or anything else. That's just short-term gain that is not worth it. It's not worth it because then you can't stand there and confidently say, I've taken care of you. This is the process we're doing, and this is what we do.
I think too, it's just, I always remind myself because, you know I'm delivering that news. I know it's the right thing to do. I know that's the decision we're going to make, but I know that we'll lose some short-term business from it. But I always remind myself, it will always come back around to those that do it. It'll catch up to
It's funny because it's like, it's not delayed obedience, but that's what it feels like. Because here's the thing, you get a new sales professional that comes from another industry or from the same industry at a different store, or a sales manager, and they have that customer, you can't get them approved because you did everything net zero, how it's supposed to be. Then they get a call from them because the customer's a little upset, like you represented them well. They get a approval from a different dealership. They're like, nothing changed. The banks are the same. The car's the same. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, they got approval on this and this. So then the salesperson's mad because they missed a deal. Sales manager's mad because it made them look silly. And they come to us and like, what? And you're like, no, our character says. So it doesn't, it's delayed gratification. It's not helping you today.
It is.
And when we get somebody new here, it takes them a while to understand, like, no, we're going to do the right thing and it's going to pay in the long term.
And that's why we enjoy sitting in the business, because when you get new people, they're either going to create your culture, destroy your culture, or you're going to say, no, here's how we do it. And let me show you this. Like, no. I heard what you said there. No, we need both of their credit apps. Yeah. It's going to be both of them on the car. Grandma's not buying this for Junior, and Grandma can't even drive anymore, or whatever it may be. It's like, how'd you calculate that income? Let me help you calculate that. But those pivotal points right there allow you to help trajectory that person. Can they still get away with that?
Sure.
Or will they understand the proper way?
I think it's really, I don't know about you guys, but when I hear a vendor talk, and when we say vendor in our world, we're talking about finance reps, people that help us take pictures of the cars, the BG, the oil, the tire, like all the reps. I hear from rep after rep, because they're in all the other dealerships. Yeah. They talk about, if I'm buying a car, or if I'm sending somebody to buy a car, it's from you guys. Yeah. Nobody is just transparent and runs their business at the high level of ethics and morals that you guys do.
Every time.
So that's where you get to feel good about it.
Agreed.
And I'll talk about this. As you were saying that, I was thinking, I saw someone brought this up today. And I was like, wow, I hadn't heard that in a long time. PPE.
Yeah.
Right. So in COVID, the government gave out PPP loans. of grants of money. Well, someone the other day was talking about something and they were so far out and they'd end up getting arrested because they gave out millions and millions and millions. Businesses would get 1, 2, or 3 million, whatever, right? There was a percentage that you get based on the net revenue and based on your employees. It was supposed to help mitigate loss to keep people employed.
Yeah.
And then you had to pay back, right? And then they talked about forgiving those things and, forget that. So these people had gone to jail because they got it. They bought sports cars with it. They bought vacation homes. They bought jets with it.
Uh-huh.
That is not what it was designed for. So they're like, quick money, I got it, let's go. They're never going to inspect this. Guess what they did? The corner was cut, and it chopped the whole table in half.
I'll tell you, we actually opened up because we got some of that money.
Yeah.
Okay. And we got it. Now, a little bit of context here too with us. We didn't furlough any employee. We didn't lay any of them off. So we took on all the expense. And we opened up a whole different bank account for it and put it in there.
Yeah.
It just debited it out of there. The differences in payroll between actual earned and what we guaranteed because it based upon the previous years and so documented because I'm like,
because we know that would happen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, here you go. And it's all in its own account, real easy, clean.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to hide anything there.
But too many people take that easy money, that easy corner.
That's good.
So another topic on that, staying grounded, how to keep your service first mindset, thinking of 80 years, how do you stay grounded and how do you stay after it, even with a legacy when you're tempted by that transaction first? We talked about that a little bit, but
there's a quote that sticks out in my mind, and I learned it a long time ago. And it says this, and I'm going to say it slow because it gets a little wordy. Okay. Customers are not dependent upon us. We are dependent upon them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about that, because sometimes when you have success and your head gets a little big, you're like, no, they got to see us. They need me. No, they don't. They have options. And the second part to that is I remind employees and managers and myself, when you see your paycheck, it's funded by the customer.
Yeah.
We're just transferring the funds. It might say Lewis,
Yep.
that one of the three of us may have signed it.
Mhm.
We're just transferring the funds.
Yes.
And so I really think those two things will help really keep you centered and grounded no matter how successful and how long you've been in business.
That's solid. And that
100%.
goes along with your checks and balances, right? Your checks and balances that keep those guardrails on, that holding. Here's the tricky thing of sometimes holding leadership accountable to the original mission statement, no matter how big the balance sheet gets, right? Of just understand, no, here's how we do it. And a lot of it isn't not necessarily always the right and wrong. Like generally that's a pretty clear line, but it is the expense bloat that they're like, no, let me sign that. Oh, let me sign that. Like there's reports on reports on reports that we get, even after you think you sign it and push it over here and it gets hidden under here, then a report comes out and we're going through it and the media is like,
What's this?
what was this here? It's like, and it's like, hey, here's this. Where such and such wrecked a car and we didn't charge them for the $500 deductible.
Mhm.
Like you just thought you could get away with it. And it's like, well, come on, boss. Like you sold 678 cars last month.
Yeah.
Like, yes. And we paid everyone. We paid for every car. We paid for every trade-in. We paid for every technician, paid for every salesperson. And we're going to make sure that they need to pay for what they're due.
Be held accountable for it.
But oftentimes that happens as well.
No, that's good.
The bigger the balance sheet gets, the sloppier that could get.
You just check yourself. I mean, I'm not saying any
Yeah,
further
you
of it,
have to.
but just check. You're like, who are you trying to be?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying if you've earned a great living and you've sacrificed this, that you can't take your family on vacation, you can't do this or that.
No,
But
that's a different.
But you're just a human being, just like everybody else is.
And then the rules need to be the rules with your business and realizing that. So if you're going on vacation and you and your partner said, hey, once a year, the business is going to pay for vacation, or they did or didn't, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You just know what those rules are. It's like, hey, you can take vacation, but you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just be, and I think that it's funny to talk about business partners because we're partners in here, and it's transparency.
Yeah.
One, it builds trust and
Yeah.
it keeps everybody in line too. There's times where I'll come to you guys, or you guys will come to me, and we're all talking about let's just lay it on the table.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's over $500.
Yeah.
I got to remember okay, we're going to spend 500. Here's 500, 500, 500 is 1,500, but we all got to be on the same page about this.
if you can't do it with 500, you'll never do it with $500,000.
You won't.
It's way harder with the smaller amounts than it is the bigger. I mean, because the bigger amounts naturally, you do your research, y'all are in it together, and it's the little amounts that start eating away.
But then that's
else.
a slippery slope.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that
that
bloating,
goes into-
not only does the bloating happen,
Yes.
then it's like, well, dang, Taylor, I didn't know you spent that on that over there. You're getting reimbursed for your gas. I'm not. What?
Yeah,
You know?
starts there.
And so then
Yes.
that just builds up, and then all of a sudden that implodes the business.
Yeah.
So we're getting a little off. But
No,
that
but
communication
it's
is
all part of it,
guardrails.
right?
Yeah.
Communication. We talk about that so much. It goes around everything, but have the clear communication and have clear guidelines that you
Yeah.
obviously all run into.
And everyone's going to have a different, it's funny, like, we've had different accountants and different attorneys help us with stuff. And they're like, oh, you don't do it like this? Like, no, this is how we do it. And she's like, no, you could be doing it like this. It's like, okay, well, this is how we do it. We just need to keep it in check. And there could be something else that we
Better.
can do,
Yeah.
but we just need to all be in check.
That's right.
Right?
That's
At
right.
least to hear.
That's really good.
Yeah, so going into the victory lap middle trap, we kind of talked about that you get so successful, you get into the end game versus the infinite game, reminding yourself that record-breaking month is just a chapter. It's not the finale. And I myself laughed about that after we'd finished our record-breaking month. I was laughing one morning, and Sarah asked, she said, what's wrong? And I said, this is the only profession you can go into that you are just full steam ahead all the way up, and it's wham, and you're starting back over again.
I mean, it's like you got to think about some of those pro athletes, like the Chiefs that did it again, then almost did it, and then did it again. And then it's like, finally, there was a year when they didn't do it. It's like, okay, they're human as well. But
yes.
you got to just, it's like every month we start over, almost every day we start over, like you're starting the beginning of a league over, and everybody's 0-0. And it's like, well, wait, we did really good. The momentum was wrong. It's like, well, it doesn't feel like it right now.
You always need it, or I do. I always need something, to look at, because if you always look, there's somebody that's done it better. There's somebody that's faster. There's somebody that's not. Like, you're looking for those people.
Yes.
Yeah, instead of seeing who you're beating.
That's right. So one of the people or profession I look at are Olympians,
Yes.
because you want to talk about a world where they train for 4 years. 4 years.
Yeah.
And you think we're intense about stuff. I mean, they live, breathe with the other Olympians.
Yeah.
Not with family, not with travel, nothing else. And some of them, it's for a 10-second event.
There was a downhill skier this year that broke her leg before the main event, or tore her ACL or something with her leg that was important. She was a
And she
skier.
said tape it back.
And she said, glue it back together.
Yeah.
Because I've trained for 4 years.
4 years. That's it.
To qualify,
Yes.
to then be in it. And so then she went ahead and tried to tough it out. And I think it just ripped the rest of the way out. And but she at least put the effort in. But
She did.
so what you're saying is, Taylor, it could be worse. She could wait 4 years.
It could be 4 years. But, in the craziness of our business, that's that little bit of like drives you. Like, oh,
That's what drives you.
Yeah.
There's two sides of it. And if you look at it, which our optimistic side of it is always, whew, that month is okay, great, we got a resetter. Ooh, that month was really good. Let's use it and move forward. Either way is positive.
Yes.
And I'm moving it forward, but always having that resetting, optimistic attitude that you can move forward there.
I think that's good. I think, you just really, that's the rush you get. But when you get that rush, it comes at having to re-jump start yourself.
Yes.
And sports teams are a great analogy to look at that. And it's not going to always duplicate it, just like you said with the Chiefs. I mean, different obstacles are going to come up. You got to be able to pivot, get back in the game, adjust, and keep it going. Because not only for us, but our whole team needs us.
Yes.
So you got to do that.
Yep. And being able to dive into like reinventing the windfall there. So instead of lifestyle inflation, how to peak profits, how to build a moat around the business for inevitable rainy day, slow chapter. We talked about that, budgeting around your slowest month so that you're prepared.
If our dad, uncle, grandfather had not been extremely good at that,
Yes.
let me just put this out there. We would never have been able to build the facility that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me put it into a more base level. And it's funny because I've heard Matt say this 100 times. And somehow we've all just figured out to do our best to live this way. But we all started in different layers of this business and worked our way through it. But there's been COVID times, of really reduced expenses because you didn't need to advertise and spend all the money, and the cars are bringing premiums. And then times where everyone's super competitive and you got to be 10 grand below net cost of a vehicle, meaning I'm paying a customer 10 grand to share my car. But early on, and Matt will say this, he said, good thing I never redid my budget from once I was a sales manager or a sales professional or a finance manager. Good thing I never redid my budget. So I'm still living in this bubble, right? So we just figured out, okay, if I can survive on this, didn't go buy all these lavish things, didn't build all these ridiculous outside of this dealership, right? Because that's a revenue generator. But it's like, okay, if you can set up your nut, which is your normal expense per month, and not like when it gets high, don't go spend a whole lot more money. Don't do it. Like treat yourself. Go get a Snickers bar. But that's what gets people. That's where those businesses go out around. They're like, oh, I should fly private. They're like, I should do this. I should do that. And there's some businesses it makes sense to, but they've weighed all their options and they've gone through all the details.
No, I think that's
so something bad. I laugh about all the time. It's like, good thing I'm still living on my budget from 2004.
Yeah.
And then when you want to treat yourself, you can.
Yeah, that's the fun part of you learning and growing anything else. If you pull back the reins and hold, and in business world, whenever that opportunity comes along, that there is a downturn and other businesses come up, you don't have to think twice and you wham, you hit it.
You keep chugging along.
Yeah, you're able to buy that because if not, if you're on the rev limiter or the other, there's no way you're going to be able to figure out the next business opportunity. And if you do, it's going to crumple what you already have.
But if you do not have the structure and if you cannot control your emotions, you will never get to what Taylor talked about. If you've ever been around anybody that's crazy successful and you're around them during a transaction when they're buying something, like an investment or something, they're calm, cool, collected. In fact, many would say they don't even care whether they get this or they don't get this. Well, their whole business plan, their whole life, their whole retirement plan is not contingent upon whether they get that deal or not.
Right.
They would like to get it.
I'm just saying, hey, the money factor. If I can be at 70% of this or at 82% of this, and if it falls in it, great. If not, it wasn't for me.
If not, they already have their other streams, but that didn't happen overnight. That took 15, 20 plus years of saving and living on a lower budget, so then you can have these opportunities and not stress out about it. And it is such a cool feeling where you can sit there and negotiate and look at business opportunities because you see it's a good opportunity, but not a have-to opportunity for us. But again, most people's emotions get involved.
It's very, very hard to dial in, but it's something you can do. It becomes very powerful that a lot of people do not have.
I mean, I can just, and we could go on stories and stories. And we were fortunate, when we were growing up, I had sold a Honda 90 four-wheeler I had, okay? I listed it in the Star Shopper, got some calls, all the stuff, paid off a loan to Dad I had on it, and it was time to get a dirt bike. And I'd had an 80 before. I wanted a 125 so bad. I wanted to be like Jerry McGrath so bad. Okay. So we found a 125.
Was it a new one?
Nope. No. You out of your mind?
I just wanted to point that out. I knew the answer.
So we found a used 125. We went and looked at it. Dad and I studied it. I rode it around. We went back home.
No, you didn't buy it right then?
No, sir.
That was the cardinal rule.
Okay. Not right then. And I was like, Dad, we got to buy that. Somebody else is going to buy it. He's like, nope. If it's meant to be, it'll still be there. So 2 days later, we go back and it's sold. It's sold. And I was like, dang it. But what frustrated me then as a kid, because we were all kids and we want stuff right then, has paid off down the road where he made me stew 3 or 4 days over a $1,500 dirt bike, that was used to now be able to make those business decisions. And I tell you that story just so hopefully people will know, sleep on it. And if it still feels like a good deal tomorrow and it is a good deal, then go for it.
Absolutely. And I love that. I love that. So many people get so completely just mixed up in that. And if it's something that you've went through and you've researched, you've obviously thought about it, it makes sense what you need to spend on it. And then when the opportunity of all of it lines up, great, move forward. If not, you walk away.
Yeah.
Like there's no emotion in it. So great episode diving into all of the spots there of just making sure your operational bloat doesn't happen. You're protecting your integrity of your business, and then the victory lap.
I want to bring this in context because we had a great conversation over all this. But the reason I bring this up is just so everybody knows that nobody is exempt from this happening.
No.
Nobody's exempt. I don't care how good you think business is going. And I want to dive just a little farther into how many multi-million-dollar companies go out of business each year. Now think about this. And then I'm going to ask you all a percentage. In the 10-year mark, what percentage of businesses fail? So within the first 10 years of operating, what percent of businesses fail?
I'm going to say
I'm going to tell you it's over 50%.
It's over 50. Wow. I'm not looking, so I could try to give you, I was going to say it's in the 20% mark.
So within 10 years, 65 to 70% of businesses fail.
Really?
Within 10 years. And I can tell you, they wouldn't have made it that far if they didn't have profit at some point in time.
Yeah.
Nobody has that just big a nest egg to sit there and do operating.
Even if they do that, I'm just going to let it burn.
They're not going to let it burn. Okay, here's the second part here. Now we're going to compare companies with 10 million to 1 billion in revenue.
Okay.
You know, I got 1 billion in revenue.
That's pretty high.
Okay. Among those, that spread of companies, every single year, 2 to 5% of those exit the market. Okay.
Wow.
Of 1 billion. In the US alone, there are between 20 and 30,000 commercial bankruptcy filings every year. Not personal, commercial. 20 to 30,000. Now, I read you all that not as a pump up, but as a reality check.
Yep.
To get the dogfight back in you. To get your expense structure back in like when you're first starting up so you can pass that 10-year mark. So you can have an uber successful business for years and years to come.
And not to just throw gas on the fire, but let's talk about it
Come on.
without fully breaking it down. Just saw in the news yesterday, Carmart, locally owned Rogers dealership, who had done such a great job, had over 148 rooftops, announced that they'll be closing 46 rooftops. And the guy texts that to me that's a local car dealer here. He's like, "Did you see this?" And I said, "I did." And that's not closed because the manufacturer made them close because it's a used car business, right? And I said, "Hey, what's your thoughts? Why did that happen?" He said, "I think they got away from their roots. Too many execs forgot what made them work." And I said, "Well, I didn't notice that they had a lot more late model, more expensive vehicles."
Yeah.
Because they're toting the note on this, where people generally can't get approved based on their credit situation, and so they go hold the note. So of 150 stores, they probably had a whole lot of receivables way out there. And so then that's a tricky line because they could control, if I need to sell more cars, just loosen up my loaning a little bit. Like, hey, if 60% loan to value isn't working, let's go up to 70% loan to value.
Or they even got, and I think what you said, and this is what I read about it too, is if I'm going to make some numbers up here, but if their core financing amount was $10,000 to $15,000, they said, "Hey, let me start bringing in some 20 and 25,000."
That's what it looked like.
It was too much, and that's what they found, that like they'd gotten away. They still did buy here, pay here, but they got out of the realm of where they had calculated and they had built the business.
The model changed there. So just like you said, keep that in mind. Like, that's so good. And one last thing I'll leave you with, I saw this in the notes somewhere in here that says, keeping that day one energy. Like when you're the up and hungry and the go-getter, starting your business, sleeping on the floor, greeting everybody, making sure the coffee's topped off, make sure the bathrooms are clean, all those things, that day one energy, and treating every customer like they're the ones that's going to keep the lights on.
That's right.
Like they're deal number 600. Like they're the customer that you just have to have today to be able to pay all the other employees. If you can keep that day one energy and treat the customer as they should be, as like, "Thank you so much. You allow me to be able to provide for all these people because of your light bulb you bought today. The blinker fluid, all the stuff, right? Thank you for that. If you can have that day one energy, and we talk about it, like you finish Ultimate Challenge, people say, well, what are you going to wear now? I'm going to wear my work clothes. You know, it's like,
whatever I can.
but it's like, you're right. You know, that was fun. Okay, I'll cut some more of my pants off, get some more jorts, and get people jacked back up because, that, you know, that's what people are here for, about the treatment that you can give them. So if you don't want to go belly up, and if you don't want to be one of those 20 or 30,000 people a year, treat that customer like they're the one paying your bills, because they are. They're the ones writing the checks.
Yep.
And make sure you have that day one energy every day, even when you don't feel like that.
Man, that's good stuff. Thanks for joining us today on The Growth Trap, why 5% of multi-million-dollar companies vanish every single year. And check out this episode and many more at crossroadconversationspodcast.com. And yes, we have all our inventory live at lewissuperstore.com.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and visit our website to send us questions about what you would like to know about the automotive industry or family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. Thank you again, and we'll see you in future shows.